a relative robust number of nurse practitioners. We have seen growth in the number of general physicians, particularly internists or family medicine practices. We see certainly much more potential growth happening there. And as we've kind of modeled through our full-time equivalent physician figures, we definitely do see that there will be some considerable growth in how that is going to really jumpstart some of this driving force behind just the broader growth of the medical industry. More physicians and more hospitals being built, and the general growth for physicians in medical cannabis is going to be a bit of an additional spark to that occupation. And depending how that may change, it could certainly be absorbed either by nurse practitioners or by by the broader physician landscape. That level of granularity is a bit hard right now, just because of the small amount of information in terms of that we have collected and that is collected in most states. Most states do have just the ability of licensed physicians and practicing physicians to prescribe medical cannabis. By year 3, we're projecting about 10,000 pounds of medical cannabis being produced, which is, again, it's 4 times what we're basically seeing now. And then we're basically seeing that double again in the next 3 years, and then increasing again by another 10,000 in another 3 years. And so we're looking at roughly a three-year period of 10,000 pound growth over the next 10 years. Again, so much of this this production is based on what we think of the available number of patients in the state, particularly given the context of the types of products offered and the information available to both physicians and patients. And so we've kind of addressed these concerns previously. The lack of clarity when it comes to in terms of employment law protections for patients is certainly a block, that is a constraint that is facing a lot of patients. Once that gets clear, I think there's going to be cause for growth in the industry when it comes to patients and their full production, because by and large, the industry is largely driven by demand. We need the demand to be there in order for the growth to be there. And so as demand is limited by uncertainty, looking at the types of physicians that have historically been prescribing medical cannabis, we're looking at predominantly internists, family physicians, and nurse practitioners. And so the wage information was ultimately obtained from both the occupational employment survey that is conducted by the Louisiana Workforce Commission in conjunction with the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So those were where we were able to actually receive the different tallies of the different types of physicians that are currently in Louisiana. And then we also looked at the Medical Board of Examiners to look at their existing the most current roster that they publish on a monthly basis on the total number of physicians in the state, which is about 6,300. And looking at from those 6,300 physicians or so, typically which were the specialties that we're prescribing. And part of this may be certainly just an access issue, where folks generally have much more access to family care physicians as opposed to specialized physicians. The scale of growth in the industry and matching that with the time really that is needed to see these patients interested in medical cannabis, it seems really, I think, natural to follow the lead of many other states and look at perhaps the inclusion of nurse practitioners as potential prescribers as well.
Traveling in more rural community areas, you will see an increase in nurse practitioners in those areas, and we do have a significant patient population that could benefit from medical marijuana. Mm-hmm. That would potentially their first access to medical marijuana would be through a nurse practitioner, or they would potentially have to travel further to a bigger city to access it. So including it is absolutely great. and having everybody understand the importance of potentially at some point considering a rule change to allow them would definitely benefit the industry.
And you're absolutely right about, for particularly for our analysis, the main focus we're looking at these different channels of access, and you're absolutely right. Just looking at the distribution of nurse practitioners relative to family physicians, it's remarkable how many more there are in across the state, and it's certainly a necessity, as you mentioned, to really assure access in particularly the more rural areas.
Have there been any public comments?